The orange sky over New Terra was filled with cheers, banners, and fireworks as Admiral Cole Danner stood still on the stone platform. The war had ended. The Varn Empire, humanity's fiercest enemy in the stars, was finally defeated. He had led the final strike himself, watched the Varn capital burn from orbit, and now he was being honored. But Cole wasn't smiling. Around him, high-ranking officials and foreign ambassadors congratulated one another, making deals in whispers. Then came the gift: 2 tall alien women with glowing violet eyes, bound in golden collars. Their skin shimmered like metal, their movements calm but watchful. The ambassador called them Kale and Sira, twin sisters who once served as bodyguards to the Varn Emperor. Now they were presented as spoils of war, a reward for Cole's victory. "Loyal, deadly, yours to use," the ambassador said coldly. Cole looked at them, truly looked. Their eyes held something: anger, sadness, maybe even hope. They weren't machines. They were alive. They were watching him just as closely. Without a word, he turned and left, motioning for them to follow. That night, in his private quarters on the flagship Valor's Reach, Cole stared at the strange metal collars around their necks. Each one blinked softly with control signals, able to force them to obey commands. Kale and Sira stood silently in front of him, heads bowed, waiting. He didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he walked forward, held up his command tablet, and entered the override codes. The locks clicked. The collars fell away. The room went quiet. The sisters didn't run. They didn't scream or attack. They stood still, looking at him with wide eyes. Then, slowly, they dropped to one knee, not from command, but by their own will. "We don't know what this is," Kale said softly, her voice smooth like water but heavy with something deeper. Cole crouched down and looked at them. "It's freedom," he said. "Do with it what you want." The sisters exchanged a look. Neither moved. They didn't speak again that night. Instead, they sat in silence while Cole returned to his desk. Outside the window, the stars blinked like distant memories, peaceful but cold. Cole didn't sleep. He knew peace wouldn't last. The war had ended too easily. The Varn had fallen too quickly. Something felt wrong. Something was coming. And as he looked once more at the twin sisters, no longer slaves, no longer chained, he felt a strange certainty grow in his chest. He hadn't just freed them. He had made a choice that would change the future of the galaxy. He just didn't know how far that choice would reach yet. After the initial victory over the Varn Empire, a false peace settled over human space. For 3 weeks, Admiral Cole Danner and the twin alien sisters, Kale and Sira, traveled toward the outer edges of known space, hoping to find signs of rebuilding or threats yet unknown. Their destination was Black Halo Station, a remote outpost near the edge of the galactic rim. The station had gone silent. No messages, no activity, just a cold absence. When they arrived, what they found was worse than silence. The station floated like a ghost, its hull cracked and broken. Inside, bodies drifted in zero-gravity crew members frozen in eternal death, their eyes wide with terror. Communications systems were destroyed, and the station's command center was vandalized with strange, glowing symbols painted in plasma light. Kale's eyes narrowed as she studied the marks. "This sign," she whispered. "It's from the Malrek." Sira's face grew hard. The Voidwalkers, the Planet Breakers, they don't come to conquer. They come to erase. Cole's mind raced. The Malrec were a legend among many alien species, a terrifying race thought to have been destroyed or driven away long ago. Their technology bent reality, and they could extinguish entire planets without warning. What were they doing here, so close to human space? Before he could send a warning back to Earth, his ship's comms scrambled. Attempts to reach command centers went unanswered. The silence was thick, unnatural. Kale stood beside him, her voice low but steady. They are already here. Fear twisted inside Cole, but he refused to show it. Instead, he gathered his crew and prepared for what lay ahead. He knew the Malrec didn't negotiate. They destroyed first and asked questions never. Humanity had barely recovered from the Von War. Now, a new enemy, far older and deadlier, loomed in the dark. The once bright hope of peace faded quickly, replaced by the grim reality of a galaxy on the brink of extinction. As the trio prepared to leave the ruined station, Cole could not shake the feeling that the chains of war had only been replaced by the shackles of something far worse. Yet the bond between him and the twin sisters grew stronger. Their freedom was still new, but their loyalty had become clear. They would fight alongside him, against this void of darkness, or die trying. The battle for survival was only beginning. The calm before the storm shattered with the destruction of Kepler 8. One moment, the vibrant colony thrived with life and laughter. The next, it was nothing but a silent glassed wasteland. The planet's surface had been turned to molten rock and ash, a sudden and terrible event with no warning. No distress signals, no enemy fleet in sight. Only a wave of deadly power had erased everything. Admiral Cole Danner, aboard the battlecruiser Valor's Reach, received the grim news just moments after it happened. His heart sank as he stared at the dark images streaming through the ship's monitors. It was unlike any attack humanity had faced. No missile trails, no explosions in space, just a vast, deadly pulse that left death in its wake. There was no time to mourn. Cole quickly called Kale and Syrah to the command deck. The twin alien sisters, once slaves but now his closest allies and protectors, studied the sensor data with keen eyes. This power, it's not natural, Kale said, her voice steady but filled with warning. The Malrec have come. Syrah's gaze hardened, her violet eyes flashing. They use technology that bends light and space. We have to be ready. The Valor's Reach launched immediately, cutting through space toward the last known breach point where the Malrec's power seemed to be focused. When they arrived, the horror became clear. Before them loomed an enormous vessel, dark and smooth like living metal, its shape shifting and impossible to comprehend fully. It was bigger than any human ship, larger even than a moon, and it hovered above a dead planet, surrounded by smaller ships shaped like shadows. Weapons on their ship were useless. Missiles disintegrated against the enemy's shields. Energy blasts seemed to be absorbed rather than deflected. Cole ordered his crew to fire everything they had. Railguns unleashed bursts of deadly projectiles. Plasma cannons screamed with power, but the enemy ship did not falter. Suddenly, the massive vessel opened, releasing a wave of black energy that pulsed outward in a deadly shock. The Valor's Reach shuddered as its systems began to fail. Lights flickered. Engines sputtered. Then came the worst. Sharp, silent boarding drones appeared, clinging to the ship's hull like monstrous spiders. Their blades glistened in the dim light, and they began to cut through the ship's armor. Cole quickly ordered all hands to battle. Stations, Kale and Syrah moved through the corridors, twin storms of destruction. Their fighting was graceful but brutal, blades flashing, bodies moving with precision. They cut down the drones relentlessly, their violet eyes blazing with fierce determination. "You freed us," Kale said as she struck down another attacker. "Now we protect you." The battle inside the ship was fierce, brutal, and unrelenting. Every corridor was a battlefield. Every moment a test of strength and will. Meanwhile, the external assault continued, but it was clear that the Malrec were far beyond human technology. The Valor's Reach barely held together as systems failed one after another. Cole's mind raced for options. Retreat was dangerous, but continuing. The fight seemed suicidal. Yet he could not abandon the outer colonies to this dark force. The sisters fought beside him, not as slaves but as warriors bound by choice and loyalty. Their presence gave him hope, a spark in the overwhelming darkness. Together they would find a way to survive. The Valor's Reach limped away from the Malrec vessel, heavily damaged but still alive. As the stars slipped past the windows, Cole knew the war was no longer a battle for territory. It was a fight for survival against a shadow that wanted to consume everything. The twin sisters stood at his side, their silent promise clear. Matter what came next, they would guard his life, and through that, protect all of humanity. After the devastating battle with the Malrec fleet, the Valor's Reach was badly damaged, and its crew was exhausted. Admiral Cole Danner knew they needed a safe place to repair the ship and gather their strength. They found refuge in the dense asteroid field known as the Arcadia Drift, a maze of floating rocks that offered natural cover from enemy sensors and attacks. The repairs began immediately, but the mood among the crew was heavy. Hope was fading as news arrived that other human fleets had vanished without a trace, swallowed by the growing shadow of the Malrec. The sisters, Kale and Syrah, revealed more of their past during the long hours of quiet. They told Cole about their people's ancient war with the Malrec, a war that had destroyed entire galaxies. Their ancestors had fought desperately to push back the Voidwalkers, but the price had been unimaginably high. The Malrec were not conquerors seeking land or resources. They were harvesters of light and life itself. They sought to snuff out stars, silence voices, and erase all existence. This knowledge weighed heavily on Cole's shoulders, but he refused to give in to despair. Humanity had survived worse threats before. He began reaching out, calling for allies among the scattered remnants of humanity and among alien species, who had also suffered at the Malrec's hands. Some were exiles, some were mercenaries, and some were war minds long thought lost. Slowly, a resistance began to form in the dark corners of space. Kale knelt before Cole one evening, her silver skin glowing softly in the dim light of the ship's repair bay. "You gave us freedom," she said quietly. "Now let us choose this fight alongside you." Cole saw the determination in her eyes and nodded. He did not ask for their loyalty. They had already given it by standing with him. The bond between them was no longer that of master and slave, but of comrades united by a common cause. The days that followed were filled with planning and preparation. The Valor's Reach was patched and ready for battle once more, but the fight ahead would be unlike anything they had faced. The Malrek were relentless, and their dark presence spread like a cancer through the stars. Yet Cole believed that with the sisters at his side and a fleet rising from the ashes, humanity might still turn the tide. The war was no longer about survival alone. It was about reclaiming hope and showing the universe that even in the darkest times, freedom and courage could shine brightest. The twin sisters were no longer prisoners. They were warriors, protectors, and symbols of a future worth fighting for. Together, they prepared to face the coming storm. The call finally came from Earth, faint but clear through the haze of war. Humanity's great armada had been whittled down to just 10 ships, battered but unbroken. Admiral Cole Danner moved quickly, rallying these scattered survivors and the Kanda D&D. Ragged fleet he had built from exiles, mercenaries, and alien allies. They gathered at Titan Gate, the last wormhole between human space and the Malrek border, a narrow passage through the stars that would be their final stand. The fleet was small but determined, made up of battered cruisers, sleek interceptors, and powerful alien vessels. Before the jump, Cole stood on the bridge of the Valor's Reach, looking each crew member in the eye. "They want silence," he said, his voice calm but filled with steel. "We'll give them a roar they'll never forget." The fleet jumped through the wormhole, emerging in a hostile system unlike any other. Black suns burned in the sky, forging weapons of pure energy. From the shadows, the Malrek fleet rose like a living nightmare. Thousands of ships, twisted and shifting, forming a dark wave that threatened to swallow them whole. Kale and Syrah took to the skies in personal fighters, ancient Varn interceptors, rebuilt with human technology, sleek and deadly. They flew side by side into the chaos, their movements in perfect sync. "Sister," Kale shouted over the cum, laughter in her voice despite the danger. "Let's show them what freedom looks like." The battle that followed was fierce and relentless. Human ships broke through wave after wave of enemy drones and warships, their weapons blazing and shields flaring. Kale and Syrah were a whirlwind of destruction, weaving between enemy fire, their fighters striking with precision and deadly speed. The air in the command center was thick with tension and hope. Every moment was a fight for survival, but also a chance to turn the tide. Cole directed the fleet with calm authority, coordinating attacks, protecting weaker ships, and striking at the heart of the Malrek forces. Despite the overwhelming odds, the humans held their ground. The sisters' presence inspired everyone. They were living proof that chains could be broken, and that even in the darkest moments, freedom could fight back. The battle raged on, the sound of explosions and energy blasts filling the void of space. The black suns above seemed to burn, brighter as if fueling the fight below. But Cole knew this was only the beginning. The Malrek would not give up easily. Still, the fleet's defiance had sparked something, a fire in the void. For the first time, the enemy felt resistance, and humanity stood united, ready to roar. The fight for the galaxy's future had begun in earnest. The battle in the depths of space stretched on for hours, a fierce and unrelenting storm of fire and steel. Human ships, battered and worn, fought with every ounce of strength they had left. The Valor's Reach led the charge, pushing straight toward the Malrek's core forge, the heart of their power in this sector. Destroying it could cripple their control, turning the tide of the war. But the forge was no ordinary target. It was protected by massive guns powered by the remains of collapsed stars, their fire scorching and unstoppable. Shield fields hummed around the forge, fueled by entire planets sacrificed to keep the defenses alive. Cole gave the order to charge. Despite the overwhelming odds, one by one, human ships were torn apart by the forge's defenses. Explosions lit the void as fighters and cruisers were blasted to fragments. Kale and Syrah darted through the chaos in their sleek fighters, tearing through the enemy drones with a deadly grace. They destroyed over 100 of the enemy's bladed machines, moving with the speed and precision of twin storms. Suddenly, Kale's fighter was hit. Flames erupted, and the ship spun wildly out of control. With no other option, she ejected in a survival pod. Syrah didn't hesitate. She dove after her sister, her own fighter's claws reaching out into the cold void to grab Kale's pod and pull it into safety. "We're not done yet," Syrah growled, her eyes burning with fierce determination. Back on the Valor's Reach, Cole rallied the remaining crew. Their losses were heavy, but their resolve was stronger than ever. The battle was far from over. The forge's defenses might be almost impenetrable, but if they could strike it down, the Malrek's dark influence in the sector would falter. The storm of fire and the void raged on around them, ships exploding and debris drifting in the vast emptiness. Yet in the heart of the chaos, humanity's spirit burned brighter than any weapon. Kale and Syrah fought with everything they had. Twin flames against the darkness, proving that freedom was worth any cost. The fight to destroy the forge was a battle of wills, strength, and sacrifice. Every second counted, every strike mattered. And though the enemy's shadows loomed large, the light of hope refused to fade. Only 3 human ships remained after the brutal assault: the battlecruiser Valor's Reach, the swift corvette Silent Rain, and the alien cruiser Tarkle's Wrath. Their numbers had been crushed, their crew worn to the edge of exhaustion, but their will to fight was unbroken. Cole Danner stood on the bridge of the Valor's Reach, eyes fixed on the dark silhouette of the Malrek's core forge looming ahead. It was a monstrous structure, pulsing with a deadly energy that seemed to suck the light from the stars. The fate of countless worlds hung on this moment. Cole knew what had to be done. The ship's fusion core, a powerful but unstable energy source, could be used as a bomb-one final strike that might destroy the forge and turn the tide of the war. "Syrah, Kale, get out," Cole ordered, his voice steady but filled with urgency. The sisters looked at him, eyes burning with fierce loyalty. They did not hesitate. Instead, they shook their heads. "We fight with you," Kale said simply. Syrah nodded, her expression hard as steel. Together, the 3 of them prepared to board the forge. The boarding process was brutal and dangerous. The halls of the forge were a terrifying mix of cold, metal, and strange organic matter, pulsating with unnatural life. They moved through narrow corridors, fighting wave after wave of Malrek Defenders creatures, part machine, part nightmare. Every battle was a test of their strength and will. Cole planted the bomb deep within the forge's heart, the pulsing core glowing around him. As he set the timer, a massive pulse of energy struck him down, sending him crashing against the metal floor. Kale was there in an instant, raising her body as a shield against the blast. Syrah grabbed Cole, pulling him toward the exit even as the forge began to collapse around them. The explosion shook the very fabric of space, sending a shockwave rippling through the sector. Outside, the forge erupted in a blinding fireball that lit up the darkness. The sisters carried Cole through the chaos, their determination unwavering. "We guard your life," Kale whispered, her voice steady despite the destruction surrounding them, "no matter the cost." Their sacrifice was not in vain. The Forge's destruction crippled the Malrek's control in the region, buying humanity precious time and hope. Though battered and scarred, the three survivors returned to their ships, ready to face whatever came next. The bond forged in battle was stronger than ever. The twin sisters were no longer slaves or prisoners. They were warriors, protectors, and symbols of humanity's unyielding spirit. And as the stars flickered back to life around them, Cole knew this was only the beginning of a new fight. A fight for freedom, for survival, and for the future of all who called the stars home. Admiral Cole Danner slowly opened his eyes to the sterile white light of the Med Bay. Around him, the soft hum of machines and the quiet footsteps of the crew filled the air. Outside the viewport, the Valor's Reach floated silently above. Star system newly freed from the shadow of the Malrek's Forge. The battle had been won, but at a great cost. Scarred and worn, Kale and Syrah stood quietly at his bedside. Their silver skin bore fresh scratches and burns, but their violet eyes still burned with fierce determination. They had fought alongside him, risking everything to destroy the Forge that had threatened countless worlds. The war was not over, but this victory had turned the tide. The Malrek forces were retreating, their dark influence pushed back for now. The council called to honor Cole with the highest award, the Star of Terra. But when the gleaming medal was placed before him, he refused it. Instead, he looked to the twin sisters and said quietly, "Give it to them. They saved more than just me." Kale and Syrah exchanged surprised glances, but accepted the honor on behalf of all who had fought and fallen. The story of the twins, once slaves bound by golden collars, now free and guarding humanity's future, spread quickly across the stars. They became symbols of hope, courage, and freedom. Their loyalty was not born of chains, but of choice and respect. And Cole knew that as long as Kale and Syrah stood at his side, humanity would never face the darkness alone again. The stars above flickered with new light stars that remembered the sacrifices made and the victories won. In the endless vastness of space, humanity had found fierce protectors in the most unlikely of allies. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it was filled with hope. Freedom was not just a word. It was a living, breathing force, guarded by the twin sisters who had once been prisoners, but now were the galaxy's fiercest guardians. And with them watching over humanity, the stars would never fall silent again.